So I've always wondered what the difference was when you compare headphones that are actually quite a bit different in price, and if that difference in price makes sense and is actually worth taking the jump on. So in this video, I'm going to be comparing two different IEMs, or in-ear monitor headphones, that are both well known for being great values at the prices they cost. The first of these are the Fiio FH5s, which are currently $240 on Amazon at the time of this review, and the second are Moondrop Starfields, which are currently $110 on Amazon. So that's a pretty significant price difference, with the FH5s costing more than double of the Fiio FH5s. So I'll be talking through my thoughts on how each one of these IEMs perform against each other, and what, if anything, you get for the extra $130 that the FH5s cost. So I purchased the FH5s about 2 years ago, but Moondrop did supply the Starfields to me for the purpose of doing this review, so I thought that was important to call out up front, but I will do my best not to be biased as a result of this. And I'll also link both of these headphones in the description of this video, so if you want to click on those and check those out on the store pages as you listen to this, feel free to do so. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about are the build quality of these two different IEMs. So we have the FH5s, which use a quad driver setup, whereas the Starfields use a single driver setup. And essentially drivers are what produce the sound. So while more drivers can mean a more impressive sound quality, you can think of it as adding more speakers to your home setup, for example. But more drivers also doesn't always mean that something is going to actually sound better. Because it makes the engineering more complex, it also makes manufacturing more complex, which leads to more areas where things can potentially go wrong. And of course, more complexity adds to the cost, which is no doubt part of the reason that the FH5s cost so much more than the Starfields. Also, the FH5s have what they call a low frequency sound tube, which is supposed to help produce better bass. And that's something I'll say up front is very, very noticeable on the FH5s, and I'll talk about that more in depth during the actual song reviews. And also something that's kind of important to call out here too is the cables on each one of these IEMs. So I will say that the cable on the Starfields is far, far more delicate than the cable on the FH5s. So I do worry a little bit about the cable on the Starfields getting damaged over time as a result of that more delicate cable. The cable on the FH5s feels considerably more substantial, and I also prefer the way that they attach to the IEM with a single larger plug, although I at least think the connection mechanism on the Starfields is more industry standard, so you can of course replace those at any point in time, should you want to do so on the Starfields, and also I am sure you can find replacements for the FH5s as well. And some other differences quick on the cables as well. I do like that on the FH5s, the cable itself is color-coded so that the left is blue and the right is red. And also the actual IEM itself notes whether it's the left or the right IEM. So it makes it just a bit easier to at a glance know which side goes where. And when it comes to the aesthetics of these, we have the FH5s, which are more focused on raw materials, whereas the Starfields are painted. So the paint on the Starfields is chromatic, so it looks really cool as you shift these around in the light. It'll actually shift from purples and blues as you hit it with light in a different way. I'll also say that the Starfields do have some graphics on the side of them. I tend to personally prefer just raw paint or raw materials, but that is complete personal preference. Both of these appear to be decently high quality headphones, although just at a glance, I do think that the FH5s look higher end, but it's also my preference to have raw materials, so that might just be some personal bias creeping in there. So next up, I'm going to talk about the comfort of these two different IEMs. And this is a little bit difficult as the FH5s just happen to fit my ears better. So I was able to get a better fit with the actual ear tips that they provided, and the IEM itself also just happened to fit my ears better. But keep in mind that everyone's ears are shaped differently, so what fits my ears better might not fit yours better. I will say that the FH5s also come with a much larger variety of ear tips that are designed to also help produce different sounds, from being more neutral focused to being more bass focused. But you can also easily buy more ear tips with the money that you save between buying the Starfields against the FH5s, if you do want to do that and get a better fitting ear tip for you, if that is an issue with the ones that they supply. And also I'll call out the different cables here and the comfort of those cables. So the part of the cable that covers your ears on the Starfields has sort of a wavy texture like the rest of the cable does. So when I wear those for a long time, it's actually less comfortable for me in comparison to the more smooth texture that's on the ear part of the cable on the FH5s. So with the Starfields, the cable where it wraps around my ears seems to rub against them in a way, where it actually generates a little bit of friction. So when you wear them for a couple hours, for example, that becomes more and more uncomfortable for me. And you can, of course, buy a replacement cable for the Starfields if you decide that you don't like the way that feels as well. But when comparing stock to stock against both of these, I really do prefer how the cable on the FH5 feels. But obviously, all this being said, if you're buying headphones, you probably want to know how these sound. So I'm going to compare these two different headphones against each other with three different songs that I think offer a good variety and contrast in terms of different listening styles and different things that might be better or worse across these two different IEMs. So first up, we have Beck, Paper Tiger, and this is an excellent song in terms of the production quality. And it also has guitars, it has orchestral string instruments, it has vocals, it just has a lot going on. So there's quite a bit to talk about here. So first up, one of the things I mentioned before is that the FH5s have a special feature to make the bass more pronounced. And you definitely hear that on this particular song. So the bass on the FH5s is super clean on Paper Tiger. And that's not a focus of this song. Bass isn't a really heavy hitting element, but it sounds really exceptional through these. The bass on the Starfields in comparison is good, but it doesn't have the same kind of thump that the FH5s have, where on the FH5s it's just very clean, very pronounced. It almost seems like you have a subwoofer as part of the actual IEM, which is a weird thing, but it's really impressive, and I think that's something I have to call out here. And also something I noticed on this particular song is that the orchestral music is incredibly expansive and clear on the FH5s. It's hard to describe, but there's a very special sound coming out of the FH5s when it comes to how it makes you feel sort of stuck in the middle of the music with it expanding all around you. The orchestral music on the Starfields does not seem as expansive in comparison. It's not as wide, so the soundstage, so to speak, is not as wide as the soundstage on the FH5s. But that being said, the music on the Starfields through the orchestral aspect is still extremely clear. So if you're looking for great clarity from your IEMs, you're not going to be disappointed by the Starfields. It's just a very different listening experience. The vocals don't seem to be anything too special coming through the FH5s, but the song also seems more balanced to make the orchestral music really stand out in front, and the FH5s handle that exceptionally well. I will say that I actually prefer the vocals on the Starfields, as it seems to be somewhere around 10% more clear in comparison to the FH5s, and they also seem to bring the vocals a little bit further forward in the song, so they're not pushed back quite as far, which makes them easier to listen to. It makes it easier to kind of pull that out. So I do think that was a positive on the Starfields. So time to jump to the next song, which is the Beatles Come Together, and it's a 2009 remaster of the song. So on this song, once again, the bass on the FH5s is very powerful and very, very clear. It's sort of like there's a really good subwoofer just built into these. I do think that the Starfields are just more neutral headphones overall in comparison to the FH5s. So these are designed to provide different listening experiences, and that definitely comes out in this particular song. And once again, on this song as well, the vocals do sound more clear on the Starfields, at least to me, but it comes at the cost of the vocals being a little bit less impactful, a little bit less intense. So that might be a positive or a negative, depending on what kind of sound signature you're looking for. And last up for these three song comparisons, we have Abhi the Nomad, Boppin. So I picked this song because it's super bass heavy, and I really wanted to compare the bass against these two different headphones. So what I found to be very surprising to me is that, as you would expect, the bass is very solid and very tight on the FH5s. It's very, very impressive. But on this particular song, the Starfields actually close the gap far better when it comes to the bass performance on this song than it did on other songs. So I was surprised by that because I picked this song specifically for the hard-hitting bass that it has. And after comparing against these two other songs, I expected the FH5s to just dominate. So I'd say that there's about a 20 or 30% increase in bass coming from the FH5s on this song. But this is largely because of how expansive the sound is coming out of those. But I was very, very impressed by the bass that was coming out of the Starfields. And I would say that they really held their own on this particular song. And the vocals on this song are crisp and clear on both headphones. And they're also doing a fantastic job. Both of these are doing a fantastic job at separating the sounds. I will say I give an edge for vocal clarity to the Starfields, which will be 3 out of 3. Basically, the vocals are very, very clear on both of these headphones. But the Starfields just seem to isolate it a little bit better, where the FH5s seem to be bringing more additional tones into the vocals. So it actually takes a little bit out of the clarity, in my opinion, in comparison to the Starfields, But in return, what you're getting is a much more powerful vocal sound, just like on the Beatles song. It's really the same deal. The Starfields are isolating the vocals a bit more, and it becomes a much more expansive or powerful sound coming out of the FH5s. So a complete matter of preference in terms of which one you prefer, but I will talk about that a little bit more in the conclusion, which we'll be talking about right now. So this really is a tale of two different headphones or two different IEMs. If you want wide, atmospheric, and hard-hitting sound, I think it's going to be really tough to beat the FH5s at this budget, or even going a bit over this budget. They absolutely excel at delivering those aspects. But if you want your IEMs to actually monitor the sound, or if you place a great deal of importance on the clarity and neutrality of elements like vocals, I think you're really going to enjoy the Starfields and probably enjoy them more than you will the FH5s. The FH5s seem to add a lot of energy and excitement to the songs, but where the Starfield seems to give a much more accurate representation of how the song was actually intended to sound. So which one of those you prefer is going to be purely personal preference. Do you want the excitement that the FH5s bring, or do you want a more accurate, more neutral representation of the song, in which case the Starfields I think will be your better option. I do think the reputation that both of these headphones have for being exceptional values for the money are well earned and true. The Starfields are easily the best IEMs I've used at a $100 price point. I've not used a ton, but comparing them against, for example, some Sennheisers and some Sures that I've used in the past that are around the same price point, I think that these actually stand out in front of those. So all this being said, I don't think you'll go wrong with either one of these options. It'll boil down to what sound profile do you want and how much money are you willing to spend. As I said up above, if you want that clean, neutral sound above all else, save the money, get the Starfields. I just recommend swapping out the cable to something more comfortable if that ends up bothering you. And if you want intense, hard-hitting, and expansive sound, the FH5s deliver that beautifully. My personal preference is that I do prefer the FH5s. I love the expansive kind of sound that they deliver, but if I wanted to save a bit of money and still have really impressive headphones, I would also not be disappointed with these Starfields at all. So all this being said, I hope this video was helpful to you. And if it was, feel free to hit the thumbs up button to let me know. And also, if you have any questions or comments about these particular IEMs, feel free to leave a comment. Maybe I can help you, or maybe someone else watching can help you as well. And if you want to see more videos like this in the future, please subscribe. I'll do my best to keep creating content just like this in the future. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching.